What's up? Phil James up in y'all's tube. Today's July 1st of the 2017. So I'm gonna make a video asking a few questions, and then I'll say why I'm asking these few questions. What makes me ask these questions? What makes me wonder about it all? So, first question. If you was, all of us, you guys watching, me, if we are all 250 miles up in the air, up in the atmosphere, if we're looking down at the earth, do you think that we could see a football field 250 miles up? Me personally, I don't think you could. Not even slightly. I'm not saying a football stadium, no professional, massive, like, retractable dome ceiling football stadium. I ain't talking something that big. I'm talking like just a football field, like end zone to end zone, you know what I mean? So, do you think you could see that? Alright, no, I don't think you could. Hopefully that was enough time for you to answer. If not, go back, pause the video, and think and answer. Just kidding. But I personally don't think you could. Secondly, do you think you could see a car from 50 miles away? 50 miles up. Looking down at, the earth, do you think you could see a car driving around or moving or 50 miles? Once again, pause the video to take all the time you need to answer. Okay. Once again, I personally do not think so. The reason I ask these questions is because the space station, for instance, orbits 250 miles up in the atmosphere, yet it's about the same size as a football field. They claim it's slightly larger with the dimensions of it, but I mean, we'll just say it's about the same size. It's relatively close. So do you honestly think you could see it with the naked eye like they claim we do all the time? I don't. And then any pictures that they actually get of it, like through telescopes or binoculars, whatever, any way they do take a picture of it, it's the most blurry shit you can see. Metadata, that website I always warn people about, the debunking website, the one that debunks all because it's Mick Shitlips West and he can just debunk anything with no problem, because he's just a genius and he can go through and tell you that everything we talk about is just bullshit. That's just Mick Shitlips West for you. He's just that great of a person, that great, saving humanity from all the conspiracies and all the paranoia. No, psych, he sucks at life. And he is a major shill, majorly. Okay, he tried to say chemtrails aren't real, and guess what? Now they're telling you that they are spraying them. I mean, they're telling you that they're spraying them. So, wrong on that one, Mick Shitlips. So, anyways, though, back to it. Question 2 was, can you see a car from 50 miles away? I personally, once again, do not believe you could. And the reason I say that is a lot of the other satellites, the instruments that we supposedly have orbiting the planet right now, are about the size of a car, give or take. Some of them are even smaller. Some of them are the size of microwaves, bread boxes, whatever. Some of them are really small instruments, and they supposedly orbit at all times, I don't think you could see that. I had the app, the satellite tracker app, and it would tell me every time, there was a satellite somewhere in my vicinity, and I could go out, point my phone in the direction it needed, and then you raise or lower your phone like that to show you the degrees of where it is in the sky, and it basically points the top front of your phone to it. I had that, and I would use it all the time. I loved it. Go out and be looking at old rocket boosters that were used in whatever space mission, you know what I mean? 1979 rocket boosters from then, So, I would always use it, and I loved that app. Used it all the time. Problem is, though, I'm looking at these satellites, and then I would go to the information section on that app, and it would tell you all about the satellite that you was looking at, okay? So you could go to the web and look at it. You can go to NASA's page and look at it. You could go to another type of database and look at it. and it'll tell you the dimensions, it'll tell you how big it was, who put it up there, when it was launched, and all that. Okay, so a lot of these satellites and space debris and space junk that was labeled in this app were really small, and I'm like, how the fuck did we see that? Sorry, I didn't mean to drop the F word. I apologize to anybody watching that is offended. I apologize. Don't turn this off yet. I swear I'll keep it PG for the rest of this video. But yeah, so how would you see that then? You know, the size of a microwave flying around. There's no chance. No chance. It's an ungodly amount of distance from the Earth. How can you see that? It doesn't make any sense, regardless of if it has lights or not. There's so, you know, it's insane. So there's two things that really go crazy and set my spidey sense, my conspiracy sense off, you know, my lying, go crazy sixth sense off. So then we go on to talk about how many satellites there are orbiting this planet, supposedly at every given second. NASA tells us that there are thousands and thousands, and from what I have read and personally found, it's more like 22,000 separate satellites and space junk, rocket boosters, whatever else. 22,000, okay? That is absolutely insane. Somebody just yelling at me. 22,000 though. So with that amount, that means we should see a satellite almost all the time, basically. I mean, look at Iridium, the Iridium satellites, okay? They're made by Motorola for the wireless cells and whatnot, you know? They named the satellites Irridium because there's 77 of them, and 77 is Iridium's atomic number. So 77 Motorola satellites called Irridium, and then those cause something called iridium flares, and that's supposedly, you know, the sun glaring off of the bright outside of these satellites, and it will light up a 2 square mile patch on the Earth, like the glare from it, you know? I've seen those numerous times. I've seen at least 2 or 3 and 4 or 5. I mean, I use that app all the time. I used to watch these things. I loved it. But the problem, okay, that could be anything that makes a flare, you know? That could be anything that you see. So on to the third thing that really rings a bell, or rings it and goes crazy in my mind, raises all the red flags. So we have all of our satellites, for the most part, orbiting in what's called the thermosphere. By NASA's statements and by their so-called fact, the thermosphere is anywhere from like 300 degrees Fahrenheit all the way up to 4,000 in some spots. 4,000 degrees, okay? And then you have all the speed that these satellites are, the speed that these things travel at, orbit at, you know? That adds more heat to the already insanely hot sections of the thermosphere. And then you add in the HARP, you know, when HARP is beaming its microwave frequencies up at the ionosphere, and it's actually a superheater. It's like a microwave for our atmosphere. That adds even more heat. So, the reason I'm talking about that, if the thermosphere gets up to 4,000 degrees, how is it that aluminum, titanium satellites even orbit up there? How is that? I mean, considering the fact that the melting point of aluminum is 1,221 degrees. So even if it was only 700 degrees, that close, you know, I mean, not even at the melting point of aluminum alone, it would still structurally lose its integrity. Like, you know what I mean? Like, this satellite would flex at such high speed, you know, it would flex, it would probably more than likely break or come apart piece by piece. I mean, it's that close to a melting point. I mean, but it exceeds the melting point in the thermosphere in some spots. So it would only piece apart in sections where it's not liquefying. You know what I mean? So then you go on to titanium. Titanium's melting point, I do believe, is 3,012 degrees. So yeah, that's a lot hotter, you know. But still, the problem is the thermosphere can go all the way up to 4,000. So how does that happen? How do we have anything orbiting in the thermosphere? I mean, these are very valid questions that need answers. So, the next thing I wanted to say in this this whole list of craziness that just seems to go over all of our heads. It went over mine too. I didn't think about it for the longest time. I didn't look into it, didn't care to. Never assumed that NASA would lie. Never assumed that they would have a reason to. But then you look at their budget. $52 million a day. Today, they have $52 million to spend. With $52 million a day, or $19.1 billion a year, whatever it is, you can come up with the biggest lie ever, and more than likely keep it, because you have such financial support that you can pay and continue to do anything you want lie-wise. You can do anything you want just in general with that kind of money. I mean, my God, that's unbelievable amounts. $52 million a day. That is so crazy to me. Especially when we have starving kids all over the planet. We have homeless people. But NASA's blowing $52 million a day on lies. Lies. Just unbelievable that people don't even care or look into it or even talk about it. So, once again, the next point that I wanted to talk about was that, it's all that, the melting points, the distances, now I want to talk about the moon. So, if satellites, 22,000 of them, are actually orbiting the planet, why is it that we never see any ever pass in front of the moon? And mathematically, I'm not a math whiz, but I do believe with some number like 22,000 satellites, that means in front of the moon, we should easily, all the time, see, what, is it like 200 an hour? Something crazy like that? Pass in front of the moon every hour? I mean, that is insanity. And we never see it, ever. And also, with 22,000 satellites, that means you should see quite a few from the ISS live feed. I mean, everybody knows about that feed, I do believe. Maybe not everybody, but I'll tell you what, I have the Earth Watch app, I watch the ISS so-called live feed all the time. I loved it. Now that I don't necessarily believe in it and don't necessarily think that they are telling the truth or anything, I still watch it just to go through and screenshot the crazy mistakes that they seem to make all the time. Like where solar panels are bending, or where, the Earth is not spinning yet the satellite is orbiting, and just all kinds of mistakes that they make, and you're like, what? That doesn't even make sense. Or, they'll have the satellite have the solar panels off the ISS itself. The solar panels, not only will they be curved due to like a fisheye distortion lens or something, but they'll also have the satellite solar arrays, and they'll be like animated, like they look fake as could be. I have numerous screenshots of it. Numerous. It's unbelievable. They don't even look real. You put it into one of those like drawing filters, it doesn't even make real shapes. It leaves openings. So it's like not even a real picture. Because if you have something that's real and you put it in that fine line or that animation filter, if it's a real image, those lines are all closed and perfect. But if you do that with the NASA solar panel pictures, like on the ISS, they don't make full perfect shapes. It leaves it open. It leaves it all crazy looking. It looks like a bunch of lines. It's unbelievable. It doesn't even make sense. Like, how does that happen if it's a real thing? But the point is, we never see any actual satellites orbiting around the ISS. I know there's a lot of space, and I know there's all the places, that these satellites could be at all the given moments, but it doesn't matter. You would at least see one or two here and there, especially with a number like 22,000 and the ISS being one of the higher orbiting satellites, You would definitely see quite a few things, like whether it's space junk, whether it's old debris, or whether it's real satellites. You would always see something. I mean, without a doubt. There's no chance you wouldn't. But yeah, that's all I wanted to really talk about. We got to ask questions. I mean, NASA's the world's largest consumer of helium. And do you think they just huff it and change their voices? I don't. But what they will say is they launch all kinds of weather balloons. Because on any given day, there are over what is it, 50,000 weather balloons up in the atmosphere over all the major cities on Earth? That's kind of crazy. Why are all those weather balloons up there? Oh, I also forgot to mention the fact that these weather balloons can lift 5,000 plus pounds. So my personal belief, after learning that, is that our satellites, our so-called satellites, are more than likely just weather balloons up there floating around. Everybody's like, well, we have cell phones and GPS. Well, that's because of cell phone towers. And the fiber optic cables that stretch from every continent under the ocean, on the floor of the ocean. And they did that in the 40s. So, I mean, satellites are not the cause of your cable television, your GPS, or your cell phone service. Those are cell phone towers. That's why they irradiate us at all times, because cell phone towers are more like death towers. But hey, those are all I wanted to really bring up. I should have another video here soon, but hey, keep it real, everybody. Peace.